What's up, War Report family? We are back with another great edition of the Auburn Express podcast, powered by the War Report. Joining me on the eve of the Deep South's oldest rivalry. I don't know if it's been much of a rivalry the last few years, but joining me is Brooks Austin. Brooks, man, how's your week going in the lead up to this one?
Good, man. It's a rivalry when this one's played in Jordan-Hare. It hadn't been since 2007 when played in Athens, though, I think. It's been a while. It's been a while since Auburn's came to Athens and walked away with a W. It's also been a while since Auburn's came to Athens and played a relatively close football game. The last two have been, 3 or 4 score victories by Georgia. So most expecting similar results this weekend, though I think everyone in college football is just waiting for Auburn to maybe play a turnover-less or a turnover-free football game. And the moment that happens, it's like an any given Saturday situation is what I would feel most defensive coordinators feel like right now when talking about stopping Auburn. It's like, well, they're going to get yardage. We just got to hope that they continue to turn the football over. And nothing tells me that they will suddenly stop turning the football over. But, maybe they have that one, because if they have that one, they're just about capable of beating anybody.
Well, we're going to get to the turnovers here in a second because you did a film review and you talked about how you feel those are happening. It was 2005, sir, was the last time they went down there and got the win in Athens. So it's been a little longer than maybe we Auburn fans would have liked. But let's jump right in here. So the Auburn Tigers travel to Athens this weekend to take on the Georgia Bulldogs, coming off what was my national championship game. Honestly, I was like, guys, I tweeted, I was like, guys, this might as well be the national championship. Georgia went down big in the first half versus Alabama, but made some adjustments defensively to contain Milroe and fought their way back in that one. They had the lead for 13 seconds, and then Ryan Williams happened again and again and again, and Georgia finally relented in that one. But the success that they had against Jalen Milroe in the second half of that game, how do you see Georgia applying defensive pressure to Auburn's offense here? You noted in your film review that they're turnover prone, and you feel like it's the RPO that is kind of the cause of that. Let's dig into that a little bit. What do you see happening in this one?
Yes, so I mean the Alabama football game last weekend, there was a slight adjustment in terms of alignment. I thought Georgia was having a really tough time with overhangs. They didn't have enough players outside of the box to stop Jalen Milroe from extending plays with his legs and allowing Alabama to really attack the flats via the run game and via specifically the quarterback run game. That was something they cleaned up in the second half with just basic alignments. Now, you want to talk about the RPO with Hugh Freeze and Auburn. If you talk to any SEC football coach that's ever had to defend Hugh Freeze for the last 11 years, he spent 3 years with Liberty, but the 8 years he spent in the SEC, you talk to any defensive coordinator and you start with, hey, what does it begin with starting Hugh Freeze's or stopping Hugh Freeze's offenses? What do you have to do? The first thing they're going to say and the first thing that they're going to talk about is the RPO game. This guy has ran it more frequently than most offensive coordinators. Everybody in college football runs RPOs. But this guy's offenses are predicated and based off of them. It is the building blocks of what they do. And the whole reason he does RPOs, in my opinion, and the whole reason people began doing RPOs is because as a football coach, I think there are no wrong answers on a particular play if I have an RPO call, right? If the box is heavy, I've got an answer for it. If the leverage is incorrect on the outside, I've got an answer for it. But all of the, quote, answers are there based off pre-snap looks, meaning if the pre-snap look looks like this, the post-snap answer is this. Yeah. Well, I'm here to tell you, in the SEC, there are a shitload. I don't know about the language here. There are a bunch of football teams that have the ability to look at and show one thing pre-snap and do something post-snap that is completely different. And I know the interception for Peyton Thorne was not off of an RPO, but it's a very similar concept because all of this, we have multiple options stuff. We're always going to get to the right answer type of offense. All of this stuff is changed by a disguise. So you listen to Peyton Thorne talk about that last interception. He's asked, if you had it to do over again, would you do it? He said, oh, yeah. 9 out of 10 times, 9 out of 9 times, I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
And he walks through his process. He says, well, I look over there and my wide receiver's got an option to go in or out. So as soon as the ball snapped, I'm looking at him to see his leverage. What I can't do is see where everybody else is going and how everybody else is moving and what the defense is doing. Buddy, all defenses nowadays in college football are moving post-snap. Yeah. So you look at the history of Hugh Freeze, and this guy's turned it over a ton his whole entire career. He's only had one season in 11 years as a head coach where his football teams have won the turnover margin. It's just what his offenses do. And that's why as a former player, man, I get real hot when I see coaches walk up there and just like, it's my players. I'm calling the perfect plays. My plays got answers everywhere. All the time, we got answers.
Yeah.
But you've had answers for 11 years as a coordinator. You've had the answers, and your teams turn the ball over. That's what they do.
Only one turnover in this one. I think the timeliness of the turnover last week was definitely the issue there. But Georgia is going to present, I think, some tougher challenges even than Oklahoma did defensively. So it's going to be interesting to see. You expect them to load the box here and force Peyton Thorne to choose his arm more than his legs or Jarquez Hunter's legs in this one?
So you can't, against RPO offenses, you can't give clarified pictures. So in other words, if we load the box as a defense, they're just going to pull every read. What we have to do as a defense is cover both plays, all right. Evenly. So we basically have to play two forms of defense. We have to have a box count tight enough and physical enough to play the run and also cover the pass. I expect to see multiple mixed design cover or disguise coverages, meaning we're going to walk up to the line of scrimmage. It's going to look like we're playing this. And then after the snap, we're going to play something totally different. Georgia has had the history of being able to do exactly that. They also have really experienced, defensive back play. I think the other thing that you can do to create problems for RPO offenses like this is just simply rolling safeties. So like we show a too high look, and then all of a sudden Malachi Starks or Dan Jackson has now suddenly crept into what I call the extended box area. That could cause problems for these things as well. But I don't want to get too caught up into just how many turnovers there have been. There's been a lot more turnover-worthy plays for this Auburn offense as well. They've gotten away with some of these turnovers.
That's true.
Peyton Thorne hit Billy Bowman right in the face mask in the middle of the third quarter on Saturday against Oklahoma as well. So, and they had multiple screen passes tipped by Oklahoma defensive linemen. So, yeah, they had one turnover last week. I could argue there were 5 or 6 turnover-worthy plays on the tape. Again, I could apply this same what if, could have, should have, could have with Georgia as well, because Malachi Moore himself solely probably should have had 3 interceptions last week against Georgia. So we can do this left and right, but the thing you're looking for on tape is these turnover-worthy plays, and there are a litany of them for Auburn, and most of them are caused by this pre-snap, post-snap picture change.
Turnover-worthy plays is such an interesting stat, right? Because it's somewhat subjective. Like when you go to PFF and you look up turnover-worthy plays, it's so interesting because we'll see, 7 or 8 on camera, and they'll be like, well, we only saw 1. But yes, there were some turnover-worthy plays there. I think one I was particularly worried about where the wide receiver essentially just kind of beat the DB to the ball just so he wouldn't catch it. Was thrown too far to the inside. I think he thought he was going outside. But look, they're going to have to protect the football. I think we can both agree if they want to have a chance at this one to keep it close. The goal will be to get the game to the fourth quarter somehow on the road. But flipping to the other side of the ball, the Georgia offense versus the Auburn defense. We're looking at a defense that has not given up more than 350 yards of total offense in Power 5 play so far this year. As a matter of fact, I don't think they've given up 350 yards to anybody so far this year. They have not created a ton of turnovers. They've created some, but not a ton. But they certainly have had some success, I think, on that side of the ball. What do you see for this Auburn defense and the prospects of slowing down what might be a pissed off Georgia offense after what Alabama was able to do to them in the first half of their game last week?
One thing I've learned, because I don't just cover Georgia, I do the director of recruiting for Sports Illustrated as well. And is one thing I've learned about the state of Alabama. I mean, Florida's known for speed. Louisiana's known for wide receivers, DBs. I think Cal's known for a lot of different things. Georgia's known for kind of offensive line and quarterbacks as of late. When I think of Alabama, I think of defensive football players. I think of defensive line. I think of good linebackers. I think of good safeties. And for as long as I've watched college football, you can just blueprint. You can just guarantee Auburn's going to have a really, really stout and physical and ready to go front six, no matter what. As long as I've watched football, Auburn defensive line has been something to note, something to watch, something to study. So I'm going to tell you right now, don't know a ton of the names outside of Keldrick Falk, but I know they're big, physical. I know they can stop the run. All right, whether or not they're top end athletes, whether or not they're going to be playing on Sundays, I don't know that. But I can go to Birmingham High School football games on a Friday night and go, oh, every college football team in this state should be really good on the defensive side of the football. They are that. So in terms of what Alabama did or what in terms of Georgia has struggled with, Georgia has struggled with execution to start the football game for two straight games now, Kentucky and Alabama. So here's the deal, Auburn. If you can get in their kitchen, if you could just get close to them, I'm not saying you got to strap them up. I'm not saying you got to be in their face. I don't even think you got to get Carson Beck on the ground or create pressure. But if you can force Georgia's hand to execute so far this season and just make them make plays, they have not been able to do so, even when plays are presented to them. Arian Smith had a 60-yard opportunity Saturday night to start that football game against Alabama. Right through the wickets. The very next play, Dominic Lovett has a catch. It's right there for him. He has an offensive pass interference. The very next possession, they have a touchdown play called. Carson Beck is a little bit suspect about it, checks out of it, checks the ball down, doesn't take the shot. The shot's right there on tape. It's available. If you can force this team's hand to execute and not just walk the ball down on you, you're going to get off the field to start this football game. That's what history this season has shown you about this Georgia offense.
It's going to be interesting, I think, here. I think big plays in the passing game is where Auburn's defense has struggled the most. Against Oklahoma, look, Michael Hawkins Jr. didn't have a great game statistically, but he made the plays. They gave up the plays when Oklahoma needed them deep. I think it was a tough proposition for Hugh Freeze to watch his defense kind of in a bend but don't break mode, and then when your offense stops moving the ball, it can be really, really difficult here. Like I said, Georgia they present some different challenges, I think, than anybody Auburn has played so far yet this year. So it will be interesting. Jumping back to the offensive side of the ball, one area where Peyton Thorne has done really well is on throws of 20 or more yards down the field. He was 6 of 7 on passes of 20 or more yards down the field. Certainly, Alabama had some success against the Georgia defense throwing down the field. They had Ryan Williams. Look, Keandre Lambert-Smith is on pace right now, Brooks, to be Auburn's first 1,000-yard receiver since 1999. This man is tearing it up. He looks every bit of an all-SEC receiver. What do you think about the deep Auburn passing game on this Georgia defense?
Yeah, it's funny when you study them, everything passing game is like in and around the extended box. A lot of slant work, a lot of quick hitches in the middle of the box, right around that extended area of the offensive line. Everything else is 50 yards downfield. It's like they like Auburn wants to play within this 10-yard radius because let's be honest, the quarterback's not seeing it very well. So this idea that we're going to develop all these like real complex intermediate passing game,
there's truth to that.
It's not going to be there. It's like you're not going to try. I think they tried to run like 2 12-yard hitches Saturday against Oklahoma. One was an overthrow, one bounced off Cam Coleman's face and was almost an interception. So it's like they nixed the whole entire portion of that playbook. Most of what they're doing. What's up?
No, I'm sorry. To bolster your point here for our listeners, right? I said, Peyton Thorne was 6 of 7 on passes of 20 yards or more. They threw exactly 7 passes from 10 to 20 yards deep in that game, but they were only 2 of 7 on those passes. So, yes, the percentages go down. You do have to see the field better in the middle of the field to have more success.
And we got to be able to layer it, Mike. Like, we got to be able to throw it over one guy and up underneath another guy, and we got to throw it with timing. We got to hit windows at the right time.
Yeah.
That's when you find out whether or not you're a dude at that position. But what they're doing to get these deep shots is actually really, really smart by Hugh Freeze, right? Because I just told you, got a quarterback not really seeing it really, really well. So if you watch Auburn on tape, it's funny. If they've got all 4 wide receivers deployed on concepts, they ain't going deep. But when they do go deep, It is off play action, and they're trying to throw it 70 yards. Like they're trying to take 2 wide receivers, run one guy on a deep post bender and one guy on a deep shot. All they're trying to do is get a singular one-on-one for one of these big, long, tall wide receivers. And they've got 2 of them. Lambert Smith's obviously really good. Cam Coleman's doubtful for this football game. I don't know why I'm telling Auburn fans about their own guys, but I really do like the Lambert Smith kid. He has an immediate ability to get on top of corners. And not only that, he's a big enough body
really well too. Yeah.
100%. But even when he doesn't, because Georgia corners can run, even if he doesn't have the ability to stack corners, he's shown an ability to win 50-50 balls this year as well on tape. So, but my concern even about their deep shot game, Mike, is like Saturday, the one miss that he had against Oklahoma. It was a home run. They were going to hit it. Cam Coleman thinks he's converting it to a skinny post because he misread the coverage. Yeah, and like Peyton Thorne throws it straight. He ends up running inside because everything about this offense has the ability to create an option to it. If the defense does this, we're trying to maximize what we're doing. And it creates the ability consistently for guys to be on different pages. And it's why there are such moments of boom and then such moments of bust on this Auburn offense, in my opinion. And it's also why, Hugh Freeze can sit down on Friday with Jordan Rodgers, call him into his office and go, see, man, look at the film. I'm not doing anything wrong. It's also why he can come to the press conferences on Monday and go,
I'm there.
I called 20 perfect plays on Saturday. We just can't execute. Well, the reason you called 20 perfect plays, coach, is because every single play has 5 different ways of being ran. And if we just so happen as players to just do the exact right thing every single time, we're going to do right. Man, that puts a lot of weight on my chest and on my shoulders as a quarterback. And honestly, a little bit unfair.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm at every single one of those press conferences you're talking about, asking questions. Before I get a score prediction from you, I will say this: after the game, Auburn had the ball on the OU 1, and I went into the post game. And they did some wildcat thing with Sam Jackson that I hated. I turned it to Isaac. I was like, dude, what is this? What are they doing? It failed, obviously, and he came in Monday. He said it's something they had been practicing for weeks, and they felt like they'd whip it out instead of just giving it to their all SEC back for 1 yard. In response to my question, Brooks, he just said, yes, we've been practicing it out. We felt confident about it. Monday asked if he had any regrets. He said, I regret not giving it to Jarquez on the 1 yard line. So I was at least happy to hear him come into that
one
and say, I would do that differently if I had it all over again. Because look, if you hand it to Jarquez and you just don't get it, nobody's eating your lunch for that, right? And so feeling like kind of in the theme of what you're talking about, maybe it sounds like he's blaming players a little bit. You and I have been on the Feinbaum show. Feinbaum asked him straight up, right? Asked John Cohen straight up, what's up with all the talk about players in the media? And look, Cohen stood behind his guy, but I have not liked the messaging around players since he got to Auburn. I understand that you have to recruit and that you need the horses to compete with Alabama and Georgia. But, I don't remember Nick Saban coming into Alabama and blaming his players for their 7-6 season in year 1. I don't.
Yeah.
He went out and he recruited it. He got a title.
I asked Kirby a very pointed question to start his press conference this week on Monday, because I've watched it on tape and I see moments of lack of execution, right, where players aren't making plays. Right? There's a variety of varieties of those examples on Saturday night in Tuscaloosa that I believe cost them that football game. I think there was a lack of coaching adjustment that they ultimately got to defensively, but for the most part, it was players not making plays, in my professional opinion. So I was very curious. I've heard dozens and hundreds and thousands of football coaches going, man, we just got to make the plays that are presented to us. We got to execute, right? We got to execute.
Right.
And no coach more than Hugh Freeze this season talk about how great of a job he's done and how many times his players have failed him to execute. So I was curious, coach, where's the line get blurred, right? Like if you feel like you've got the right call or the right play called and it doesn't get executed, does your responsibility as a football coach stop right there? Or are there ways as a football coach for us to increase the levels of execution? And to be honest, the first thing he said was, well, I'll watch it with the player and show where we went wrong, right? Where we went wrong, not where he went wrong, where we went wrong. And then right after that, I'll go to my quality control staff and I will ask them, how many times have we given this player this look against the look that he was given? In other words, if I haven't made this guy do this multiple times, I can't expect him to get it done during the game. That's on me.
Right.
And how many times have I looked at a coach or had a coach get asked that question and the coach look at him and go, well, we got to get better players. We got to get players that can execute the play, or we got to get players that can make that play. Right now, I know Kirby Smart's had 9 years to have the right players to make those plays. Sure. Hugh Freeze has only had 2. I'm very aware of that. I'm also very aware of the fact that as a football coach, your job, in my opinion, is to stand up there in front of that mic and start every conversation with, it starts with me, period, and then go forward from there. I think things get a lot easier on you, and the blowback on that stuff becomes a lot easier on you. And the other thing about this is this whole idea of turnovers, they're not new to this guy. They're not new to this guy at all. They're not new to this guy's offenses. I've given the numbers ad nauseum. Yes, he's on pace to have 36 turnovers this year. Yes, that is a lot. He's got a year with 29 turnovers on his log in the Power 5. This isn't anything new to him. And by the way, he sits there and he kills Peyton Thorne. Go watch that bowl game against Maryland and tell me if you think Peyton Thorne's changed or you think Peyton Thorne's improved. No, he hasn't. So you signed up for another year of this guy. Will you please stop murdering him in front of the media every week? I don't understand that.
Yeah, I think Auburn fans are trying to get to 2025 any way they can. Obviously, this week they had a big committed quarterback in Deuce Knight.
Hey, yeah, that's what I was about to say. You know what? That dude, I've sit here and shit on Hugh Freeze for about 12 minutes now. But let's be honest. He's 2-3. He's got a home loss to Cal and a home loss to New Mexico State over the last 2 years. And he signed top 8 classes. And by the way, 25 commits. I believe 8 of the top 10 players in the state of Alabama. I think he's going to flip Neem Offord.
Yeah.
Is he going to flip Neem Offord?
Yeah, it's good. So
he's probably going to go 9 of 10 in the top 10 players in the state of Alabama. The rest of the class is surmised with nothing but power or 5-hour radius takes. He's taking kids from Alabama, taking kids from Georgia, taking kids from Mississippi, taking kids from Tennessee. And then there's like 4 or 5 selective takes from national prospects that they can land, blue chippers that they can land. In other words, if you're listening to this, that is a very repetitive style of recruiting tactics. Yeah. I hammer my state. I hammer my 5-hour radius. I go land, national prospects that want to come play here. Dude, you can do that every single year if you're successful at what you're doing now. That's not, it's a repetitive mold. It's a repetitive model. It's why he's had the ability to do it 2 years in a row. The dude can recruit. There's no doubt about that. Zero doubt about whether or not this guy can recruit. Whether or not his offenses can stop turning the ball over, no, they cannot.
Well, the messaging is still working on the recruiting trail. I had my doubts about keeping this recruiting class in spite of the record, but recruits seem to be buying that they will be the difference. I need to buy or sell a score here from you, Brooks. The spread on this one is 24.5. I like Auburn to cover. Obviously, I don't like them to win. Who do you got here? And obviously, you got Georgia, but by how many? Give me a score here.
I picked it this week. Auburn or Georgia 38-14, which is 24 points. So it's right there on that line, ironically enough. But yeah, man, I do expect, again, crapped on Hugh for a little minute there. And what's so weird to me about his offensive systems relying upon the RPO so much, this dude is really creative offensively. I mean, every week he's got something for the opponent, right? Last week it was a fake flea flicker followed by a fake check with me that ultimately led to that 4th and 1 possession that you were talking about, Mike. Yep. Like the moment he feels like his offense has any type of momentum, he's going to hit you in the head with something. Yeah. So I do believe there are going to be a couple of opportunities to score, one through Hugh Freeze, one likely through a Lambert Smith explosive that puts them in the red zone. Apart from that, I expect Georgia to handle this football game 38-14.
38-14. So you got Auburn just barely covering in this one?
Yeah, I got Auburn just barely
I have a
covered in this one.
point.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. If you're on FanDuel or DraftKings, you heard it here from Brooks Austin. Expect Auburn to cover, but expect to sweat the entire time. Look, I appreciate you joining me, Brooks, for your perspective. I think fans expected to take a beat down this week from the media, given how this series has gone. Would not be surprised if Hugh Freeze completely pulled something out of his butt. This one, you talk about a man who owns 2 wins versus Alabama. It's a short list of coaches. But before we get out of here, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at the Film Guy Network. Just search it. We do a lot of college football content. Actually, like Mike mentioned earlier, did a film study on Peyton Thorne and this Auburn offense. We're live Monday through Thursday, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. You can also find me on social media at Brooks Austin BA. Hey, man, I appreciate you for having me on, for real.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express podcast, powered by The War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are The War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. Signing off, and as always, War Eagle.